December had always carried a special energy for Emily Hayes, but this year the feeling was different, sharper, heavier, and strangely exciting. She felt it the moment she stepped out of her apartment in Seattle on her last workday before the holidays. The morning air was icy, the sky pale, and the city full of people rushing toward Christmas. But inside her chest, something stirred that had nothing to do with travel plans or gifts. It was an old ache, nagging sense that something in her life had been left unfinished. Emily had spent the last 5 years building a life that looked successful from the outside. She worked as a marketing designer, lived in a decent apartment, and kept herself busy enough to avoid thinking about the things she had walked away from. But the truth was simple. She was tired. Tired of pretending she felt completely satisfied. Tired of smiling through loneliness. And tired of ignoring the small voice that kept asking her why she left her hometown and the people in it so quickly. On the evening she packed her suitcase, the little ache inside her grew stronger. She folded her clothes, wrapped small gifts for her parents, and stared at her reflection in the window. Behind her, the Christmas lights blinked softly, reflected in the glass like memories she had once tried to forget. But when she finally zipped her bag, she whispered to herself, "Maybe this Christmas will be different." Her flight landed in Vermont, just as the sky turned a dusky shade of purple. Snow covered everything, the roads, the rooftops, the trees that lined the narrow streets. The cold was sharper than Seattle, but it felt strangely comforting. Like home, her parents were waiting with warm hugs and excited smiles. But even their welcome couldn't push away the feeling she had carried with her. A mix of anticipation and something dangerously close to longing. The following afternoon, after she had unpacked and settled in, Emily offered to help her parents clean the garage. They laughed, surprised by her sudden energy, but welcomed the help. She pushed open the wooden side door, and a gust of cold air rushed in. She had only taken a few steps inside when the door behind her opened again. The faint sound of footsteps made her turn, and in that moment, time seemed to stop. Standing in the doorway was Michael Turner. He looked older, yes, but more grounded. His dark hair was dusted with snow, and his blue eyes carried a calmness she didn't remember. His winter jacket was unzipped, revealing a warm flannel shirt beneath. And when he smiled, that same gentle, familiar smile from years ago, Emily felt her heartbeat jump in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. "Emily," Michael said, his voice quiet but steady. "You're home." It was such a simple sentence, yet it carried years of emotions, friendship, distance, memory, and something deeper neither of them dared to name. She tried to smile back, but the words caught in her throat. She had imagined seeing him again many times, but never like this, unexpected and sudden, with emotions rushing through her faster than she could handle. "I just got in yesterday," she finally managed. "I didn't think I'd see you so soon." "I was driving by," he said, nodding toward the street. "Your dad waved at me, told me you were back. Thought I'd stop and say hello." The moment was warm, awkward, sweet, and painfully real. Both of them stood there, pretending to be casual, while inside everything felt like it was shifting. Emily noticed the slight hesitation in his posture, the way he seemed unsure whether to step inside or stay at the door. She also noticed something softer, some quiet, emotion in his eyes that hadn't been there when she left years ago. They talked lightly at first about work, about her life in Seattle, about the town. But the air around them carried an old familiarity, something she hadn't expected to feel so quickly. It was like stepping into a memory that was still alive, waiting for the right moment to return. After a few minutes, Michael glanced toward his truck, clearly unsure if he should stay longer. "I don't want to keep you," he said with a small smile. "I just wanted to welcome you back." Emily nodded, but the words slipped out before she could stop them. "It's really good to see you, Michael." His eyes softened, and for a moment the cold December air felt warmer. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You too." He stepped back, giving her one last look, gentle, warm, full of things neither of them dared to say yet. Then he turned and walked toward his truck, boots crunching softly over the snow. Emily stood there long after he left, staring at the empty driveway. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, something fragile, hopeful, and confusing. It wasn't just nostalgia. It wasn't just memory. It was a spark. A quiet, unexpected spark that whispered in the back of her heart. This Christmas might change everything. The days following Emily's return passed more quickly than she expected. Vermont's winter had a way of pulling her into a quieter rhythm: snow-filled streets, warm lights in windows, and evenings spent sipping hot tea with her parents. But through all of it, one thing stayed constant in her mind: Michael Turner. She kept trying to push the thought away, reminding herself that she was only home for a short visit. But every time she stepped outside and saw the familiar town, she felt the weight of old memories pressing gently against her heart. She had once imagined her future here. She had once imagined Michael in it. Life had taken her somewhere else, yet a part of her was still tied to him softly, stubbornly, silently. 3 days after their unexpected meeting, she saw him again. She had walked downtown to pick up cookies from the bakery she loved as a teenager. The small bell on the door jingled as she entered, and the smell of cinnamon and fresh bread wrapped around her instantly. She ordered her family's traditional Christmas cookies, then turned to leave. The moment she stepped outside, snow began falling in gentle flakes, and there he was, leaning against his truck, brushing snow from his sleeves. "Emily," he said with a warm smile. "You're out early." She laughed lightly. "My mom sent me for cookies. She said it's not Christmas without them." "Some things never change," he replied. His tone was playful, but his eyes watched her with a softness she could feel even through the cold air. They walked down the snowy sidewalk together, talking about small things: the town's decorations, the charity event he was organizing, the cold winter that had arrived too quickly. Their conversation flowed easily, and Emily felt that familiar comfort again, feeling she didn't have with anyone else. When they reached the small park near the center of town, Michael stopped walking and turned toward her. Snow gathered gently in his hair, and the soft lights from the lamppost caught the warmth in his expression. "Do you have a minute?" he asked. "There's something I want to show you." Curiosity tugged at her, and she nodded. They walked toward the old community center, a place that once held school dances and summer fairs when they were younger. Inside, children were painting ornaments, volunteers were sorting winter coats, and a Christmas tree stood proudly in the center of the room. Emily's eyes widened at the sight. "You organized all this?" she asked. Michael shrugged modestly. "The town needed help. People needed something warm this year." She watched him move through the room, helping a little girl fix a broken ornament hook, adjusting decorations, smiling kindly at everyone. She saw a new side of him: steadier, more patient, more grown. It warmed her heart in a way she hadn't expected. When they stepped outside again, snow was falling harder. Emily pulled her scarf closer, but she felt oddly warm inside. "You've changed," she said softly. "So have you," he replied. "But you still smile the same way." The words hit her unexpectedly. She felt a flutter in her chest, gentle but unmistakable. She tried to hide it with a light laugh, but Michael's eyes stayed on her for a moment too long. Later that evening, he came by to help her decorate the Christmas tree at her parents' house. It happened naturally. Her mom mentioned the boxes were heavy, and Emily said she'd call him. He arrived 10 minutes later, snow still on his jacket, his breath warm in the cold hallway. They worked side by side, hanging ornaments, and stringing lights. At one point, Emily reached up to place a star on a higher branch, but it slipped from her hand. Michael caught it quickly, their fingers brushing for a brief second. The touch was tiny, but something inside her jolted quick, sharp, confusing. She looked away, hoping he hadn't noticed. But he had. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tree lights flickered softly, casting warm colors across the room. The silence between them was not awkward, but heavy, filled with something they both understood, but didn't dare speak. Then her phone vibrated in her pocket. She glanced at the screen. A message from Seattle. A person from her life there. A person who wanted to meet when she came back. Her heart tightened. Michael noticed her expression change. His smile faded just a little, a shadow of something sad passing through his eyes. He didn't ask who it was. He didn't need to. You should get that, he said gently. I will, she murmured, slipping the phone away. They continued decorating, but the warmth from before didn't feel as easy. Emily struggled to ignore the sudden tension in her chest, the pull between the life she had built far away and the life she once imagined here. When they finished the tree, Michael stepped back and admired it. It looks good, he said softly. It does, she agreed, though her voice felt shaky. He put on his jacket, preparing to leave. She walked him to the door, her heart heavy with unspoken words. Thanks for helping, she said. Any time, he replied. He paused for a moment as if wanting to say something more, but he simply gave her a small, warm smile, the kind that held years of meaning, and stepped out into the snow. Emily closed the door slowly, her heart pounding. She tried to tell herself it was just nostalgia, just memory, but deep down she knew it was more. Something between them had awakened quiet but powerful, and she had no idea what to do about it. The next few days felt heavier for Emily. Even though she tried to act normal around her parents, her thoughts kept drifting back to that moment by the Christmas tree. The soft brush of Michael's fingers, the sadness in his eyes when he saw her phone light up, and the confusing pull she felt inside. She tried to distract herself with baking cookies, watching Christmas movies, and helping her mum wrap gifts, but nothing worked. Every quiet moment took her straight back to him. Michael didn't call or text, and Emily wasn't sure if he was giving her space or simply stepping back. Either way, the silence made her restless. She knew he was busy preparing for the town's annual Christmas Eve charity event, something he cared deeply about. But she also sensed there was more behind the distance, something he wasn't saying. On the morning of Christmas Eve, her mum mentioned casually, Michael asked if we're coming to the charity event tonight. You should go. It might be good for you two to talk. Emily felt her breath tighten. She didn't respond, just nodded and continued tying the ribbon on a gift. Her mom didn't push, but she gave her a knowing look, the kind that only mothers give when they understand something without being told. By evening, the whole town seemed alive. The streets were lined with glowing lights, and the sound of distant carols filled the cold air. Emily wrapped her scarf tighter and walked toward the square alone, trying to steady her breathing. Her heart felt strangely fragile, like it was bracing for something she couldn't name. When she reached the archway decorated with pine branches and golden lights, she spotted him immediately. Michael stood under it, greeting families, helping kids carry boxes of toys, smiling politely at everyone. He looked warm, steady, kind, yet there was a quiet seriousness in his expression she recognized instantly. He turned, saw her, and froze for a brief second. Then he smiled. A soft, careful smile. You came, he said, stepping toward her. I said I would, she replied, though her voice came out softer than she intended. They walked into the event together. Children were running around with painted faces. Volunteers were sorting donations, and the scent of hot chocolate drifted through the air. Christmas music played from speakers near the tree, creating a cheerful backdrop to the evening. Emily helped hand out gift bags, tie scarves on children, and hang small ornaments made by the community. Every time she and Michael crossed paths, their eyes met for a moment too long. There was warmth, but also a quiet hesitation between them, as if both were waiting for the other to speak first. Later, when the event quieted and families began heading home, Emily stepped outside to breathe in the cold air. Snow was falling again, soft flakes drifting lazily through the night, shining under the streetlights. Michael found her standing near the edge of the square, looking up at the sky. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Just needed a moment." He stood next to her, close enough for her to feel his presence but not touching her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was full, meaningful, heavy with things left unsaid. Finally, Michael exhaled slowly. "Emily, I've been trying to figure out how to talk to you." Her heart tightened. "About what?" He looked down at the snow under his boots, gathering his thoughts. Then he lifted his eyes to hers, and she saw everything he had been holding back. The longing, the sadness, the hope. "When you left years ago," he began softly, "I told myself I would move on. I thought it would be easy if I kept busy, helped the town, stayed focused. And for a while, I convinced myself that I did." Emily felt a sharp ache in her chest. He continued, "But seeing you again, it made me realize something I've been ignoring." His voice lowered, steady but vulnerable. "I wasn't over you. Not really." The words hit her like a wave, gentle but strong enough to shake her. She swallowed hard, unable to speak. Michael looked away briefly, as if afraid of her reaction. "I don't expect anything. I know you have a life in Seattle. I know things are complicated. I just needed to tell you the truth." The snow fell around them in soft, steady curtains. Emily felt her throat tighten. She wanted to answer, to explain what she was feeling. But before she could gather her thoughts, her phone buzzed loudly in her pocket. Michael heard it. His expression dimmed, the warmth in his eyes fading just a little. "You should take that," he murmured. Emily didn't move. She didn't want to. But the phone buzzed again, longer this time. She finally pulled it out and looked at the screen. A call, from Seattle, from someone who still believed he had a place in her life. She pressed the phone tightly in her hand, her heart beating too fast. "Is it him?" Michael asked quietly. Emily didn't answer. Her silence was enough. The snow seemed to fall even more heavily, covering the ground in a soft blanket. Michael took a small step back, giving her space, though his eyes stayed on her with a look that made her chest ache. "I should finish cleaning up inside," he said softly. "Take your time." He turned and walked away slowly, each step heavy, his shoulders slightly lowered. Emily watched him disappear into the warm glow of the community center doors. Her phone buzzed, again in her hand. She didn't answer. She couldn't, because for the first time in years, she realized she was standing at a crossroads, one that could change everything. Christmas morning arrived quietly in the Vermont town, with sunlight spreading pale gold over snow-covered rooftops. Emily woke early, the soft warmth of her parents' home around her, yet sleep had been restless. Her thoughts were tangled, filled with moments from the previous evening. Michael's words, his honesty, the way he had looked at her under the falling snow. She replayed it all, her heart tugged in multiple directions. The phone from Seattle still buzzed in her bag, a reminder that her life outside this town was waiting for her. Yet her heart stayed rooted in the cold streets she had once walked as a teenager. After a quick breakfast, she stepped outside, the crisp air biting at her cheeks. Snowflakes fell lightly, floating lazily in the morning light, and the town was quiet except for the soft crunch of her boots on the freshly fallen snow. She knew she couldn't ignore her feelings any longer. Michael had been patient, kind, and steady, but the tension from last night lingered. She needed to see him, to speak from the heart, before leaving the moment unresolved. The community center was already bustling with volunteers, setting up the Christmas breakfast for families. Tables lined with food, decorations sparkling in the morning light. Emily spotted Michael immediately. He was placing napkins on tables, smiling and chatting with everyone. Even in the busy chaos, he looked calm and strong. Yet there was a flicker in his eyes, a mixture of hope and uncertainty when he saw her approach. "Emily," he said softly, pausing mid-step. "You're here." "I'm here," she replied, her voice steady though her heart raced. She stepped closer, the snow crunching under her boots, a warm determination settling over her dot. They walked together through the decorated hall, helping place small gifts on the tables, serving hot chocolate to children, and sharing small jokes to keep the mood light. Yet beneath the surface, both of them were aware of the moment waiting to happen, the unspoken truths that could no longer be avoided. Each glance between them carried the weight of years, of memories, and of emotions neither had fully expressed. When the last table was set and children were laughing nearby, Emily took a deep breath and stopped in front of him. The hum of activity around them faded in her mind. She looked into Michael's eyes, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. "I need you to know something," she said quietly. "I didn't come back here to stay forever. But being near you again, seeing you, it made me realize something I've been avoiding." Michael's expression softened, but he didn't interrupt. He waited, the quiet strength in his posture steadying her courage. "I left a piece of my heart here years ago," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought I could move on. But seeing you again, spending these days with you, it reminded me of what I've been missing." His eyes searched hers, steady and warm, waiting for her to finish. "I don't know what the future looks like," she admitted. "I have a life outside this town, responsibilities, plans. But I don't want to run away from this, what we have now, what we might have." "Not anymore." Michael's lips curved into a soft, careful smile. He reached out slowly, taking her hand in his, the same gentle way he had touched her years ago as a friend, a companion, and a confidant. The touch was reassuring, grounding, and full of meaning. "So you're saying, you're staying?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with hope. "I'm trying," she whispered, her eyes glistening with emotion. "If you'll have me in your life again." Michael's grip on her hand tightened just slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of the relief and joy he had been holding back. He didn't rush her, didn't pull her into a hug immediately. Instead, he let the moment breathe, letting them both feel the depth of what they were sharing without words. Outside, the snow continued to fall gently, covering the ground in a soft white blanket. Inside the hall, children laughed and played, unaware of the significance of the moment, yet somehow adding warmth to the room. For Emily and Michael, it felt as if the whole world had quieted down just for them, giving them space to reconnect, to remember, and to start anew. They walked outside together after the breakfast was over, the cold air sharp against their faces, but neither noticed. The town was quiet, the streets empty, and the snowflakes sparkled like tiny stars around them. They walked side by side, hands still intertwined, speaking little but feeling everything. Each step was measured, gentle, and certain. They were two people who had wandered away from each other, but had finally found the path back. Emily glanced at Michael, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think this Christmas really is different," she said. He looked down at her hand in his, squeezing it lightly. "Yes," he replied, his voice low and full of warmth. "Different and better." For the first time in years, Emily felt a deep, calm happiness settle into her heart. She wasn't just back in her hometown. She was back in a place she had never truly left Michael's life. And his heart had always been part of hers. As the snow continued to fall softly, the two of them walked slowly back toward the community center, ready to face the rest of the day together, knowing that this Christmas had changed everything. Not in a sudden, dramatic way, but quietly, beautifully, and with a promise of something real, lasting, and deeply heartfelt. This Christmas had brought uncertainty, longing, and unspoken truths, but it had also brought them back to each other. And for Emily and Michael, that was the greatest gift of all.